"Would you like to come out today?" "Oh, yes, please," said Edward. So they lit his fire, made lots of steam, and Edward puffed away.
True Colors, an audio quickie by EdwardsDayOut. Henry's driver switched off the TV amidst the sobbing of over half the engines in the shed. This week's movie night pick had been a romance, and it clearly struck a chord. "Oh, but when he said, 'I will always be yours,' oh, the feels!" Brooke squealed. "Truly a work of art," said Emily. "And when she looked into his eyes," began Dylan. Henry and Avery promptly began bawling their eyes out. "I thought you said you wouldn't cry this time, Martha," Dylan smirked. "I'm not," she very clearly lied. I've just got some soot in my eyes." "I win the bet." "Shut up. Anyway, you still owe me after I beat you in that race." "You two raced again?" said Edward. "I told you to." "Not important." Dylan shot a look at Martha. "What did you think, Gordon?" asked Avery. "It was all right, I suppose," said Gordon. The four young engines stared. "What? How?" "Well, just wasn't that interesting." "But the feels, dude," said Brooke. "What feels are you talking about?" said Gordon. "Gordon," began Molly, "I don't think you told them." Oh, right," said Gordon. "Ha, I completely forgot." "Forgot what?" said Avery. "What haven't you told us?" said Martha. "Don't jump on him," said Boko. "He'll tell you when he's ready." "Thank you, Boko, but I think I'm more than ready to tell the young ones," said Gordon. The big engine cleared his throat. "Time to tell a story. Back when I was young and green, it was a different, busier time. We engines were worked off our wheels. They didn't call it the Roaring Twenties for nothing, let me tell you. I especially was kept busy being the new express engine for a rapidly growing railway. For these reasons, as a young engine, I didn't really give much thought into romantic love. I loved my family and my friends, of course, even if I wouldn't admit it, but romance was at the back of my smoke box. I was more focused on my work and keeping up my appearances. The 30s were when I began to consider looking for somebody to be with, but nobody I met caught my eye. I found this odd, but hadn't much time to dwell on it, as the Second World War meant that I was once again busy. Once it finally ended, I once again found that nobody interested me. I began to become worried that I would never find a soulmate, that others would ridicule me for being alone. The 60s only exacerbated my anxieties, as you would imagine. When the 70s finally arrived, after years of mulling it over, I made one of the most important realizations I've ever made. At first, I thought that I believed my job was just more important than love. Then I thought that nobody I met matched my standards. I even considered that I might have been homosexual at one point. I used to think that I was broken, that I wasn't normal enough, that I needed to find somebody, anybody, that I could be with. But I finally realized I was more than content to not have a romantic partner. I'm perfectly happy to go through the rest of my life with just my friends and family, and finally realizing that makes me very, very pleased. When I told my brother this, I was worried about what his reaction would be. This was, of course, before she told me she was into fluid. When I told Edward and Henry, they told me about how they were on the sexuality spectrum as well. Sir Topham was supportive. Thomas was indifferent. James was happy for me. Even my coaches were glad I found myself. Percy was confused. "What does that mean?" he asked. The sheds were silent for a few seconds after Gordon had finished. Finally, Avery spoke up. "Well, what does it mean?" "I believe," he said, "it's called being aromantic." "I see. Thank you for telling us. You've had quite the journey." "I think that we can all be glad you're being more open about this, Gordon," said Edward. "Well done." "Thank you all. I really do appreciate it. I'm truly lucky to be on a railway with all of you. Now, could we please watch something other than a romance next week?" The other engines laughed and agreed.